Takes a second to negotiate it. So I get up in the morning, but I'm not at my house. I'm in Golden, Colorado, a couple of weeks ago. And who is there to have breakfast with me? My dear friend Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. This is the Elder Council. Dewey, this is our first time live
Yeah,
streaming onto YouTube. And that morning was the morning of your 75th birthday.
yeah. That was a fantastic morning and fantastic day. So much fun.
I, you know, it was it was so great getting to spend that day. And I think about birthdays around our house. Birthdays are like the most important holiday. Birthdays and anniversaries are the
Hmm.
most, and I inherited that from my wife Kimberly. Her family just has elevated that, and I learned that on my 50th birthday when I met her. It was 6 months before that. She went nuts on my birthday, just did this whole thing. And so for yours, I thought it was so great that you had friends who hosted you, and there were all those. Now, did you know all of those people were going to be there, or just that there were going to be a few people?
I knew there would be a number of people. I didn't know everybody. Everybody that was there, I didn't know was coming. I knew everybody there, actually, interestingly enough, except one. One person brought their mother, which I'd never met, but I talked to that person a lot. But so the answer is I knew there'd be quite a few people there, but I didn't know. I was surprised about some of the people.
I thought it was interesting. It was fantastic because they had set up a microphone, maybe an hour and a half into the party, and people went up, and you were, I was sitting right across from you. You were sitting in this chair, and they were like looking you right in the eye, talking to you, and they were all emotional because you had impacted every single one of those people, including me, who went up there.
Mm.
And it got me thinking. I've never done that. I've never seen that. I've never been involved in something like that. And
Well, neither had I, and that was a total surprise. I was going, "What are you guys doing?"
but it felt like kind of like your life in review, but in real time. People giving you through a different lens. They were looking at the impact you'd made on their life, and some 20, 30 years ago. I mean, some went way back, right?
Yeah, yeah, even like 40 years ago. Yeah, it was mind blowing.
And how does, you know, the fact that we have the grace to have lived as long as we have and become elders, not olders. By the way, everybody loves that line. But to look back and think about the lives that you've impacted, and let's talk about that for just a second.
So in what way? Like, what's it feel like, or what's my
Well,
experience?
we don't. Okay, so let me put it a different way. I'll give you an example. So my background, computer animation, and we had interns, we had people who come right. I loved hiring right out of school. And I can remember times in town, someone stops me, recognizes me, stops me, and says, I wanted you to know that my son now works at DreamWorks or PDI or up at
Hmm.
Lucasfilm. And, you really changed their life and you had a huge impact. That's 20 years later. A guy posted I had written a story on my Substack, and a guy posted, I don't think you know how much of an impact you made on me, but you helped, the program you had in the after school program turn my life around. And now I have my own company, and it's
Hmm.
25 years later. And you don't realize that. I had enough of those happen where I was like, hold it, I need to make every moment matter
Absolutely.
because right? Because that interaction, who knows that it was just nothing for me, but that interaction just caused a ripple with other people. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I have a couple of thoughts, and because I spent a fair amount of time. I mean, one is the impact of people speaking. It literally took me probably a solid 3 days
Mm,
to process all of that and let that come through, and to really feel that, because it was so stunning and so beautiful and so heartfelt. And both, when people spoke, they were being incredibly vulnerable, and I
mm,
felt
mm,
very
mm,
vulnerable. And there's a couple of things. One is actually three things I want to speak to. One is, if I, when I was 25, which would be 50 years ago, if someone would tell me that I would be doing what I'm doing right now,
mm,
talking to you, having a birthday party like that, living on the side of a mountain with Kimberly, and doing what I do, I would tell them they were nuts. It's like
mhm,
that they were
mhm,
in fantasy land. So that's one piece. The other piece that I actually had to process was, I did not know the depth of how I impacted some people.
mm,
I have never in my life gone, oh, if I do this for so and so in a year from now, they're going to remember me. Or there was never that quid pro quo piece. And so what happens for me is, I I do my very best to live in the present. I do my very best to be a good being, a good person, a good man on the face of the earth. And I don't know, there are many times what that means is I don't know the depth I've impacted somebody. And what my guess is even with that, my guess is I've probably impacted some people negatively that I don't know
mm.
about either. The other piece I want to speak to that is tied to that is, I was in my mid 30s, and my mother was a teacher, and I went back to the school system. She taught in the school system that I grew up. Um, I never had her as a teacher, but she was one of the teachers in the system, in the schools there. But I went back to the school that was my elementary school. So it was probably 30-ish years later. And I went to Mrs. Sauer's room. And Mrs. Sauer was, and it was the end of the school year, and Mrs. Sauer was my kindergarten teacher.
Oh wow.
And I walked into her class and her classroom, and she was packing everything up. And what blew me away is she actually recognized me and remembered my name.
And remembered your name.
Yeah. And so we started talking, and the what she shared with me was she was retiring. That was literally her last day of teaching ever. And um, and we chatted for probably 30, 45 minutes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
She wasn't in a rush to get out.
No, it was actually the day before had been the last day of kids, and so she was packing up her room. The reason I went there was because she was the most impactful teacher that I had ever had.
And you could, when you say that, this is post college. So
Yeah, yeah,
you'd
I
had a
was in my
lot of
mid-30s.
teachers.
Yes. And and I shared that with her, and I shared why and what she did and how, and in those days, kindergarten was like 3 hours. You do two and a
Mm,
half hours, and there was a morning session and afternoon session. Um, but my home, because of a lot of different issues, mostly because my mother had been recovering from illness and stuff, and there were a lot of struggles, and um, but it was the place that I actually felt safe.
mm,
And when she asked me, she said, "What did I do that
mm,
was so helpful?" And I don't know if you remember kindergarten, but you do all kinds of fun stuff, and then you lay down and on a little mat and take a nap, and
mm,
it's like 20 minutes or something like that. But what I said to her was that I felt safe enough to sleep.
mm.
And and I don't even remember sleeping that much. I mean, I think would I was like any little 4.5 or 5 year old boy that wiggled around all the time. Um, but it was I felt that was the first time that I'd actually felt that level of nurturance and safety and kindness. I know that I felt that some before then, but on a consistent basis, and especially from somebody outside my family. And what I walked away from, and she was in tears and I was in tears, and one of the things she said is, I never knew that that's how I impacted you. And so what I walked away from that with, and also walked away from my birthday party with, is that we don't know how we're going to impact people. We don't know the depth of impaction, and that a simple phone call or a simple check-in, or just creating a space where somebody can be safe. We don't know that. And a lot of times we don't ever get the privilege of having that feedback.
Exactly right. And it was only on reflection, it's 55, I think, is when I I don't know how it hit me, but it did hit me at a retreat that I was making an impact, and only because I had evidence by people coming and talking to me, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. That's the only way you know. And it really took me uh by, I guess, by surprise, but it it made me think about how I show up more than ever before. It made me be aware that, and I that's when I came up with make every moment memorable. And it's when I thought, each interaction with my grandkids is creating a memory for them, and I don't want to waste that time.
Exactly.
I want that very intentional, and not like, it's not an overbearing way or an over contrived way. It's just, hey, pay attention. This,
Mhm.
what you say matters, and it wasn't just the grandkids; it was kind of everybody, and it
Yeah.
was living that more intentional. Hey, I think of someone. There's a reason I thought of someone. I'm calling them. Just, hey, how you doing? Just checking in. How you doing? Hey,
Mhm.
and I don't think there's a person on the planet that doesn't appreciate that. And I
Exactly.
don't do it for that reason. It's more of, um, just do, gosh, it's kind of hard to even say. And where all this is going is our show, is what if we could go back and talk to our 25-year-old self,
Hmm.
what would we say? And I think, and it's always different, but I think it is, hey buddy, maybe I start with a little slap. Hey, hey.
Wake up, dude.
Yeah. But it's about, all these interactions are going to be remembered. You're going to
Okay.
remember how you showed up. So you're creating the memory for yourself for sure. But then it's also going to be created for everyone you interact with. And just make them count. Don't let them go. Make them count.
So, from your perspective, what is the most, if we really want to make something count, what what needs to happen inside of us to allow that to happen? Because if I come to you for something and I go, whatever I do, I'm going to make this count for Mark. The chances are it's not. And the chances are if I'm doing that, I'm doing that for something for myself, not for you. If I go, I'm going to call Mark to make this count, that's different than going, I'm going to call Mark because I want to connect with this man.
Mm-hmm.
I want to connect with my friend. Or I want to see what his wins and struggles have been this last week, um, or last 2 weeks, or whatever it is. It's like the the intent behind the contact. I I think there needs to be a purity to that.
I agree. One of the things I've learned in our speaker coaching is, the speakers are all up in their head, but just in a few minutes before they go on. If any of you listening, you're all up in your head. And when we quiz into that, we find that all of the self-talk is about themselves.
Mm,
How do I look? Am I going to remember my lines? Do I say the right things? It's all I statements. And what Kimberly coaches, which totally works, is that when you go out there, it's not about you, it's about them. It's about what you're giving them, something that they need. And what does the audience need? And it's interesting that as soon as you flip that around, and what do they need? It's not about me now, it's what do they need? It has this magical effect of completely calming them down and go, oh, yeah, okay. And now it doesn't, kind of none of that other stuff matters. And I've heard that over the years now so often that it has impacted me. And I think what I would say is when I show up or when I call, it's not about me, it's about them. And and I I've thought a lot about this, not as a speaker, but just as a human with
right.
everybody you interact with, that it's not about you, it's about them. And I think it's only recently that I've really figured out that is it selfless? Is that what it is?
I don't I don't know if I would say it's selfless. I would say it's more being authentically present because
Mm.
we have to have some level of self to connect with another being. Um, but if I call you and go, I'm calling so that Mark can tell me how cool I am, Or Mark, I mean, that, I mean, one, you're going to feel that within the first 8 seconds.
Mm,
Um, but the other is if I'm calling or connecting or however that happens to be, if I'm doing that with the intent of going, what do you need or what could be a good thing for you is, or if I'm calling and just going, hey, I've missed you.
mm, mhm,
I don't want anything from you. I just
mhm,
want contact. And one of the pieces that I think you're really touching on here, which is huge, is in the world, and I'm going to talk from the world of therapy, but also all the self-help stuff that's out there. It's like people are so often taught in relationships to ask for what they need. That's the big mantra. Well, ask for what you need in a relationship. Ask for what you need in a friendship. Ask for what you need with your wife or your husband. And if let if I'm talking about, say, a couple, and I don't care what couple it is, if one person is going, I need this, and the other person's going, I need this, that creates division. That creates a standoff. If one person goes, what do you need today? And the other person goes, what do you need today? What do you need in this moment? What do you need in this moment? It like all of when we can do that, one, we all do get our needs met. But the other piece that happens is an internal settling in our bodies and an internal trust that the other person we're in a relationship with is really has our best interest at heart versus only their best interest at heart. So if I'm in a relationship, well, I am in a relationship with you. We have a very deep, dear friend. uh, I'd say beyond friend, intimate relationship. It's like, how are you doing? What are you needing today? Tell me about your life. Tell me about your excitement. And and instead of coming on and going, well, Mark, I did this and I did this. I mean, it it's a different process of what do you need right now?
as you were saying that, I was reminded of two other times in the last 20 years where the other person's to be thinking of the other person. So to tell you both examples. One is in martial arts. And in martial arts, when we're sparring or when we're just working with another person, Master Wheaton would always say, like, I'm in charge of the other person. Like, I'm in charge of them and making sure they don't get hurt. And I'm there. And I know they're there for me, right? That's reciprocal,
Right.
right? And it's not about winning none of that stuff. And that was a mind shift for
A
me,
huge mind shift.
right? At 50, right? That's when I first stepped on a mat when I was 50. And I'd never really had that taught to me before.
Hmm.
And then the other is in the last 10 years, early on in improv. I started improv 10 years ago. We're taught that you're there for your scene partner. So about being present and
Hmm.
helping them. And that's why when we perform or when we're in class and we've got white belts, so to speak, we everybody goes around, we've got your back, got your back, got your back, and mean that. so that they can come out and realize they're a lot of fun because you're taking care of them, right?
Hmm.
And and let's go back to our 25-year-old self. How do we, because I didn't get that till I was 50 and then again until I was 60. So how do we teach that as elders now that we know that, so that someone doesn't have to wait all of that time?
Wait a half
Like,
a century to get it.
yeah, sorry, but you don't get this lesson until you're 50. It
Hmm.
would be, and I feel I've always been a good, good person, good guy. I'm not a dick, all of that kind of stuff. But I think and I have zero regrets in my life. However, people that watch this hopefully are watching to get a nugget. So what's that nugget look like?
The Let me digress a little bit because I think this might help because this is what's going through. When I was 25, there would be things I would do to get something. So here's my example. Like in a relationship, like a romantic relationship, we have choices on how we tell somebody that we love them. Or even a friendship. I mean, you and I tell each other all the time we love each other. But when I tell you that I love you, I am not doing that for the purpose of trying to get you to say I love you back. And I use this example in couples. It's like, I love you, babe. Hey, babe, I love you. Did you hear me? I love you. And when we do that, that's not clean.
Mm.
So if I, so metaphorically, what the nugget is when we give something, when we say something, when we say, I appreciate X, Y, and Z, or babe, you're beautiful, or thank you so much for thinking of me on something. We're doing, there needs to be a cleanliness to that. And the cleanliness is about doing it because one, it's authentic, and two, we're doing it without an expectation.
I think that's you're no, you're 100% right, because you do something to get something. It's always about getting something, right? We do this to get that thing.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a natural impulse, or it's just like, if I do this, I get that, right? Do is something maybe, okay, let's go way back. Does this behavior come about as part of your attachment stuff that we know to be able to get a thing, we have to do a thing? Is that something we learn as little kids and we have to grow out of it?
Well, when we have really strong, healthy attachment, what strong, healthy attachment is based on is being given something out of love versus given something out of wanting something back. So what I would say is when a parent is taking care of a little kid, their baby, whether they're a week old or whether they're 5 years old, I mean, this is going back to Mrs. Sowers, is she gave because she wanted to give, not because she wanted something back. And when we have a fragmented attachment, if you can imagine, like just visually, And the image I use is like a puzzle, those big 10,000 piece puzzles or 1,000 piece puzzles. I don't know, a 10,000 piece puzzle would be pretty darn big. Is it's like one of those puzzles that haven't been put together all the way. They're only maybe half done. And there's a bunch of holes. When we give to get, we're trying to fill those holes. When we give authentically, we're just giving without an agenda. And there's so much in our society right now that has to do with giving because there's an agenda. And some of that is some of the religious stuff that's going on right now is about that. A lot of the political stuff is about that. A lot of um, there's been a loss of purity and in the intention of what we're trying to do. So what you were learning is I believe, purity of intention.
Mm.
If you're on the mat with me, if my intention is just to try and take you out, or vice versa, that's not pure. If we're on the mat with each other, and what was fun, I mean, we actually did do some stuff together with pummeling, couple three, and it was like we were doing that to help the other person learn. And it was like super fun.
Right. It was. It was. It was hard.
Yes, and nobody is trying to win. And there is a whole piece in here of moving away from empire building or the winning building, trying to win. I think we need to be able to move away from that.
I think that's the nub of it, isn't it? That it's I mean to it was said to me, you don't need to manipulate to get what you want.
Exactly.
Right. And that hadn't been called out to me. It was like you're doing that to elicit a response, as opposed to that's messed up. You don't, that's not how you do it. And right. And it was the person who said it totally trusted, was a black belt actually. And it wasn't on the mat. It was in a different situation. But what I wonder is, at 25, can we learn that, or is this something that we just get as we become older?
I think we can learn it if we've been taught it most of our lives, yeah.
Mm.
And we can learn it if we've experienced it most of our lives. The people that I know that are 25 have experienced it. They have had situations where, whether it be parents, a coach, or a teacher, or a sensei, that when we truly experience that changes our lives. And unfortunately, like one of the pieces that happens, I think, and that we're in the middle of right now, is so much of our relational stuff is on a screen versus between two live beings. So the answer is yeah, we can have the essence of it at 25. I actually do think, at least in my experience for myself and other people I've worked with, there's a different level of that happens around 55-ish or 60.
Mm. Mm.
And it's actually, interestingly enough, the essence of what I think is the beginning of elderhood.
Mm. Well,
And which you mentioned, it's like there's a difference between being an older and an elder.
so maybe that therein does lie the answer that at least if we can impart to the person who's listening that the paying attention bit and to not just really look at how you get things. Are they given to you or do you manipulate people to get them?
Mm.
Are you honest? And that applies to all facets of your life. That's the thing I noticed. It's like
Yeah.
everywhere, right? It's everywhere. Um, well, hey, Doc, that's all the time we have.
Yeah, we're
Just
running.
like that, bam, bam, bam. It went quick. Our first live stream, yay! Dewey Freeman, Mark Sylvester, the Elder Council. Hey, you're okay streaming live. It means we couldn't make any. Couldn't edit out any.
Say what?
Couldn't edit out any mistakes.
And edit out any mistakes.
Yeah.
So you get